What's up, future shredlords? Welcome back. Death to the fingers. We're going to be getting into the different levels and of sort of useful practice. A lot of people play licks or whatever else, and they sort of got their bee in a bonnet about my video there about theory and a whole bunch of other things. But sorry, I meant every word. So here's some practical examples. Number one here is playing pentatonically, not just playing the shapes, not just playing up and down. Not even just sort of ascending one and descending the next. I mean, actually just trying to make some sort of musical idea using the pentatonic scale. That's a bit different than just, playing the scale shapes. Now you're starting to veer into music territory. Watch out. Heaven forbid. So that's the whole thing is you'll see me do in this little exercise here, just playing pentatonically. Now, of course, at the end I get bored, so it just veers off into madness. But, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. And that's just it, is now I'm just thinking about the major modes and the pentatonic simultaneously and starting to add in some of those, exotic notes like the flat and third from the major scale or flat and fifth from the minor scale for the blues scale, if you will. And so on and so forth, the sharp five from the harmonic minor, superimposition, arpeggios, the whole 9 yards. I don't know if I do a few, I can't remember. But that's just it. When I'm doing this stuff, it's unique every single time, and that's just what you should be doing too. Start off nice and slow and easy, and then start ramping up so it's like indistinguishable. If you want to play just like the bluesy stuff, go ahead, and you can. But if all of a sudden you're like, I feel like there should be a major scale sort of attaching these two ideas together because it sounds way better. It smooths out the transition. Musician's mind, right? Much better. So you actually work on that skill too. It's better to have both, right? Than one or the other, considering they're basically derived from the same thing. You take 7 notes and you only play 5. I don't know. It's like the major and the minor scale. People get confused with that. You can see everything with respect to just the major scale, but I get it. If you want to write music, you're going to have to know more about the minor scale and all of what that entails, but that's a whole nother chapter, right? So essentially, step number one is just recognizing these flavors or these sounds, these colors, in this case, playing pentatonically, and then starting to sort of blend other flavors together so you get like this overall sort of tapestry of sounds rather than just one specific one. You know what I mean? So here it is. Let's get into it. All right, the next part here is obviously on sort of like the idea that you're going to take like the system that's the pentatonic scale and try to rearrange its elements in your mind or directly on the fretboard, however you like to do it, and see how you can group it together Rick Graham just did a video on pentatonics. He does the exact same thing, 2 notes on one string and then 3 notes on the next string so that he can use economy picking to sort of do the transitions. It's a really insane lick, obviously, but it's all pentatonics. So, I mean, that should open your eyes a little bit if you're really into the super hyper shred and all the rest of that stuff. But my point being here is that it's a state of mind when you actually sort of innovate. And trust me, it's all been done. There's this other guy, Alex Makachek, I think his name is. He's got a really good video on pentatonics. It's pretty advanced, but still very good video. The thing is that there's just so many ways of interpreting this information, and it's up to you to sort of do that innovation to what makes sense to you. Now, I like 3-in-1, and Rick Graham likes economy picking, and Alex likes sort of like string skipping kind of stuff, right? So where do you fit in? You know what I mean? And that's kind of like your own journey. You got to sit down and sort of get it done. So in this case, you see me combining Dorian and Ionian together. I'm like, it's already 1, 2, and 3, right? That's the first 3 notes from the Ionian position when I'm playing it in G major in this case, right? And then there's 2 notes, so it's 3 and 2 now, the opposite of what Rick Graham was doing. But still, I can now gang that up in 3 octaves. And then you see me coming down using the same principle, using the minor pentatonic, using minor thirds and a hold step. So and then, you know, ramping it up so it's more advanced, so you get a major 7 arpeggio later on. That's my point. You see, it starts off at the basic stuff, and then you ramp up to the more complicated stuff, and then you just practice it enough that you can play it fast. But the idea here is not to just look at these shapes in isolation. You're like, look, I can kind of lump these ones together, and now I can take this one sound and now layer it diagonally across the entire neck. That's very useful, right? Whether it's been done by other people or not, that's not the important part. It's you coming to your own realization and being like, yeah, no, actually, this is way easier for me. And whatever that entails, sit down and start messing with it, but that's just it. It's a practice state of mind. Sit down, don't practice scales or anything else. Be like, I know this pentatonic scale. How can I arrange the notes interestingly? And then start practicing that. You're still practicing the pentatonics, but the way that you're doing it is not necessarily just with alternate picking and all the rest of that stuff. Next. All right, I'm going to just combine the next 2 parts here together, because the first one is just basically using hammer-ons and pull-offs, either in the context of a minor pentatonic scale or whatever else it is. At first, I kind of wrote this stuff off, thought alternate picking was more important, but honestly, I learned this from Rick Graham, so he says hammer-ons and pull-offs are probably more important overall to be practicing. He's probably right. So it takes a lot of dexterity and, you know, endurance, if you will, you know, muscle strength and all that good stuff, to just do this clean and sort of keep it up over an extended period of time. So it takes a lot of practice. Don't overdo it, obviously, but, you know, pack away at it. And that's the thing, sort of like work in the context of like the minor pentatonic scale, work in the context of a major scale like I do here, sort of ascend and descend. And then later on, when you get better at sort of alternate picking, start to just add that as the element, which, you know, is the end results. The section after that is going to be on basically playing using an open string. I've talked about it before, free jams. Basically, this unlocks modal flavors, you know, the Dorian sound, the Phrygian sound. When you do this, obviously I'm playing a Ionian position type sound, in this case the major scale. So B with B major. I know, shocker. So you get this idea, you're starting to hear it and you're like, oh, so that's why they were saying there has this sound when you play this scale, and then when you play this other scale, it's got this new sound and stuff. Well, if I started playing an open B and I did the B Dorian, it would be totally different sounding, obviously. So that should open a few doors for you if you have a 7th string. If not, and you're doing the 6th string, you'll have to innovate a little bit, but it's the same principle. And the thing here is that you're just sort of going for this idea that you're trying to create a small piece of music, right? Instead of just be like a machine. And at the same time, sort of use that as an opportunity to explore the fretboard and train your ear to be like, what's the next note in the sequence? And then hopefully get to the point where you're like, I know where I am, which opens up a huge amount of doors, obviously. So you can see me do diatonic scale sequences, spread chords like Rick Beato or Eric Johnson, some scale fragments and whatnot. Obviously, modal interplay, in this case, just the Ionian mode. So there's a whole bunch of elements there, but that's what you're going for too. If you don't have a low B, do it on the open E string, like I've shown many times, and get her done. All right, the last thing here essentially is, you know, obviously putting all the elements that you did without any backing tracks or any sort of like metronome work and starting to factor that in. Now, listen, obviously, I'm showing you one of my practice sessions, so it's kind of relative, but you should be seeing some basic themes there where I'm starting to create melodies using slides and vibrato and trying to, you know, emphasize areas and create movement, you know, so it feels like the line is moving forward rather than just being in a static zone. And that's, you know, what we call groove, if you will, your ability to sync up your lead playing, your improvisations. And that's really the big one, is just improvising. Just pick up your instrument, throw on some music, whatever that is. I don't even care if it's just, you know, you're playing along to your favorite songs. I've done that a million times. Just solo over their vocals. Just gonna kind of block it out. But just sort of take it upon yourself to just play along rather than trying to play the song. Be like, it's this chord, and this chord. So be like, using the cage system, I could move that somewhere else and then use that as the starting position and start soloing, start to layer some chords in there and all this good stuff. And of course, over time, you'll just get better and better and better at it and become much more confident. And really, that's sort of unlocking the doors to true musicianship, where you can just sort of play music in any real context. Now, it may not be, I'm not going to be going to any jazz gigs or anything like that, right? Because it's just not my cup of tea. But you know what I mean? If you're just going for like the bar rock kind of situation, I'm going to fit in and under, in almost any situation. And that's really what you're trying to go for, is this. You don't have to be like, the uber advanced super guitar player. You just have to be somebody who enjoys the music and stuff like that, has a fair amount of knowledge, and then just, of course, has the confidence to be able to get up and just play with people. I've seen a lot of guitar players shrink back when they're like, come on up and play. And I'm like, why are you shrinking away, man? You got good chops. Get up there. And then they found themselves really, really, really enjoying it. That's the last hurdle. And you can kind of get over it early, if you will, by just improvising more. You don't go in with a plan. You just start playing, and then you see how it goes. And that's just it. Do a serious critique of how you thought it went. Of course, you'd be like, it wasn't very good, but how was the timing? What do you need to really work on? And then when you get back to the other stages, work on it, right? Mint. Okay, that's enough of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate every single one of you. See you in the next one.